Hey, welcome back to Marvel Rewind. This time we're talking about Thor. It's almost good. Here's the thing about Thor. The director is one of the more interesting choices they made, they being the studio executives. Kenneth Branagh is a pretty damn good director, known for his Shakespeare adaptations. He did Henry V, he did the 4-hour complete text of Hamlet, he did Much Ado About Nothing. He's a great actor. He really knows, how to deal with verbose, bombastic dialogue. He's a great, character actor, director. And he's done some action sequences before. And it's interesting that they would choose him for something like this, which is, half fish out of water story, things blow up in New Mexico, and half people in carpets having long-winded discussions in throne rooms about hierarchy and royalty and stuff. So he's an interesting choice. The problem is it doesn't really work on the screenwriting level, and him as a director, I don't know if he knew how to shoot the scenes that weren't people talking in rooms. His framing, for example, is a little bit weird. Come to think of it, the framing that I chose is a little weird. Sorry, hang on, let me fix this. I'm just gonna edit. I'm not gonna... Thanos. I'm just going to edit. That's better. So, the movie works mostly on the strength of the actors. Chris Hemsworth is pretty freaking great right out of the gate as Thor. This is not the Thor we know and love from the Avengers and Ragnarok and Infinity War. He's kind of a whiny douchebag for a big chunk of the movie. He's kind of a frat boy. I want what I want and I'm powerful, so give it to me. But there is a character arc here, so it works. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins is fantastic in everything. He's really, really good as Odin. He's so good it makes you wish the whole movie kind of took place around him instead. His backstory is interesting. And when we find out more about him in Ragnarok, you really want to know more about who Odin was. And then, of course, there's Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston is Loki. Again, not the same Loki we would get to know and love in the Avengers and after that. He's a much more tortured, kind of whiny, emo teenager in this one. But again, there was a character arc there. Who else we got? We got the 4 friends who hang out with Thor. I don't know any of their names. We got Stellan Skarsgård, who's playing the scientist. Svelvig. We got Kat Dennings, and we got Natalie Portman. And that's where the movie kind of loses steam. It's not that they're bad actresses. It's not that it's not necessarily interesting. It's that it's so not interesting compared to everything else that's going on in this movie. You don't need a romance in this story. I don't think it really has time for one. There's so much going on with father-son stuff, with brother-son, with brothers, with legacy, with adoption, with all kinds of things. The romance really doesn't kind of matter. And the fish out of water plot is fun for a bit, but then you realize, Thor is not going to use his fucking hammer for an hour and a half of this 2-hour movie. You realize that Thor is not even a god. He's a normal mortal man for an hour and a half of this movie. It's an interesting idea to take the powers away from a hero, and it worked really, really well in Ragnarok, because by that point we got to see Thor do all the Thor stuff. In this movie, there's about 15 minutes of Thor being Thor, kind of, and then him and his dad get into a fight. It doesn't really make any sense based on what we've seen so far of those characters. I mean, Thor was about to be crowned king until Loki's plan showed up. What if Loki hadn't done that? Thor would just be the king, and 10 minutes later, Thor gets banished for being a dick? He was a dick before, no? I don't know, it's weird. So, it's a bit of a rushed storyline, and once Thor gets to Earth and you realize it's a redemption arc, you kind of realize you never really got to see who Thor was, or how he became an arrogant prick. It makes sense, I guess, but it doesn't really... You want to see the progression more. And apparently there's 11 deleted scenes in this fucking Blu-ray. So, the story's got problems. Visually, the CGI is pretty crappy a lot of the time. Or not just the CGI, but the way the actors are keyed into the CGI. It's very, very clear when a green screen shot is happening. It's also kind of got this Peter Jackson-y thing where there's a lot of realms and worlds and big wide shots of castles and stuff. But Peter Jackson used actual, models and got a real camera and shot them dynamically and integrated the characters into them, and it's interesting. This one comes across as, we're on planet Y, here's some stuff. You can tell it's a bad planet because it's dark. Hey, we're on planet B. This one is prettier because everything's covered in gold. Asgard doesn't look very cool. A problem they never really fixed in any of the movies. And then for the Earth stuff, it all takes place in one little ass town in New Mexico, which feels very much like a backlot. It does not ever feel like people really live there. Visually the movie doesn't really open up. And again, there's something about the way Branagh chooses to frame his shots, which again, I feel like I might have fucked up. Hang on. There we go. That's my gimmick for this video. Holy shit, there are a lot of Dutch angle shots. And in case you don't know what a Dutch angle or a canted angle is, that's what I was doing with the previous setups. It's when the camera is just tilted. Used accurately, it can be, wonderful as a storytelling device, as a subtle bit of atmosphere. Do the Right Thing is a good example. Spike Lee's film has a lot of Dutch angle shots that just kind of feel natural. And that movie's about the hottest day of the year, so every character is kind of slowly losing their mind throughout the course of that movie. A bad example would be something like Battlefield Earth, which I've never seen, but is notorious among like film geeks for having every single fucking angle be tilted. Another example would be the Les Miserables live-action flick that Tom Hooper, I think his name is. Hope I'm getting that right. Directed. Same thing. There's a lot of shots in that movie that are so tilted that when you watch, you just kind of tilt your head. Thor is full of them, and it happens early on, and you're like, oh, well, maybe it's because it's a flashback, or maybe it's because we're on a new planet, and he's trying to differentiate that there is, he's trying to show that there's something amiss behind the scenes here. But then it gets to Earth, and it's just like an establishing shot of a building, and the fucking thing is, I don't know, it's really, really fucking distracting. If you want to watch this movie, or if you're doing what I'm doing and rewatching them all, and you're not looking forward to Thor, which I was not, here's a way to make Thor more fun. Take a drink every time it cuts to a fucking Dutch angle, because holy shit, you'll get hammered by the end of it. I was not looking forward to watching Thor. I've been putting this off for like 4 days. I want to upload this on Monday. That's basically in an hour. So I watched it, got out of the way. It wasn't terrible. Between this and Incredible Hulk, it's tough. The Incredible Hulk is shorter, and it's more by numbers, it's more bland, but it kind of works. This one tries for some stuff, and when it works really well. The sequences on Isengard, where the fuck are they from? Asgard. The sequences on Asgard are really, really compelling and interesting. That world's really interesting. Loki's character arc is pretty fucking great. The story from Loki's point of view is interesting. Thor's story is boring. The big action sequence is I'm gonna fight a big robot, and then I'm gonna fight my brother on a bridge. And when you think about the idea, especially now that we've seen what Thor and Loki become, when you think about the idea of Thor and Loki are going to have a one-on-one fight, and that's the climax of the movie, that should be fucking amazing. And it's really boring. It comes across really Batman and Robin-y. It comes across like, hey, we're dudes in suits jumping around on wires on a big set. It's not a fun climax by any means. Nor an emotional one for me. This is subjective. I don't think the romance worked. Don't get me wrong. Chris Hemsworth's fucking really, really hot and charming. I get it. And, Natalie Portman's attractive as fuck, and she's playing a scientist, and she has agency for a minute in this movie. I'm not really sure what the hell she's studying. I guess it's wormholes. But once she meets Thor, it very much becomes his movie, even in the scenes that she's supposedly in charge of. And she's kind of just following his lead, and, the idea of, I want to learn whatever I can, and you're from another planet, teach me some stuff, is an interesting one, but it doesn't come across like, hey, I'm a scientist, teach me something I've never heard before, show me something new. It comes across like, you're dreamy. Tell me more about your fucking 9 realms. Didn't really work for me. Also, speaking of 9 realms, we've seen way more than 9 planets in this fucking franchise so far, so I don't really understand that one. Maybe a realm is like a galaxy, so like Earth and then everything that's near Earth, I don't really understand. What else is there to say about this movie? As a movie. A little long. The ending kind of works because it ends on Chris Hemsworth's smile, which is always nice. The opening is too rushed. We need more time with Thor before he's banished to see how he became this person, how him and Odin became him and Odin, how Loki and him became brothers, all that stuff. We needed a lot more time before the banishment, I think, for this to really work out. Coulson's always fun. I like seeing Coulson around. I mean, honestly, the movie is just kind of a movie. It's it's better than something like Solo or Ant-Man, where like I watched images projected on a TV. Like that's basically all I have to say about that. Like it tries for some stuff, and when it succeeds, it works. So it's probably like a 7 out of 10. About the same rating I would give Incredible Hulk. Incredible Hulk might be a 6. Because it's so bland and basic formulaic storytelling. This one's basic formulaic storytelling as well, but visually they're trying to do something. So yeah, the movie is the movie. I really wish that when Thor got his hammer back, I felt like, yeah, but like I never really got to see him use it besides in the opening scene. And when he used it in the opening scene, I disagreed with why he was using it. So it doesn't... Once again, man, like, Thor Ragnarok got it right. The more interesting stuff to talk about is its greater place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We get references to Stark. When the Destroyer, the robot, shows up, we get a reference like, is that Stark tech? Like, that's cool. We get a reference to... I knew a scientist. He was the leading scientist in gamma technology, and S.H.I.E.L.D. got involved and we never saw him again. Clearly that's a Hulk reference. We get, obviously the whole world opens up and we get to go to space. Everyone gives Guardians the credit for that, and Guardians is way more fun. But this does open up the galaxy and show that there's more than one place where things can come from. So we get the Bifrost, we get the idea Loki mentions, there's more than one way on and off of a planet. We get the idea that there are relics and old ancient weapons. We get the idea that there's more to this world, and there's more to the story than what we know already, that something might have happened in the past. We get characters like Selvig, who would go on to be in the Avengers movie. Coulson obviously gets to be more, and then we get Hawkeye. It's interesting that Hawkeye's introduced in this movie because of all the Avengers, he's the one that gets shit on the most for not being superhero-y enough. And I think that's kind of the cool, compelling part of Hawkeye. But it's weird they're choosing the way you do. It's an action sequence, and Coulson says, I need somebody up top with a gun. I need him armed, something like that. I need a shooter up high. And we see like a camera pans across a bunch of guns, and we see a hand grab a sniper rifle, and then the hand is like, never mind, I want this bow and arrow. Which, if yay, Hawkeye, if you know who Hawkeye is, but it's like, why would he? I've never seen Hawkeye use a gun. And if he's proficient at it, he must know that it's better than using a bow and arrow when you're in a war situation like in the Avengers and stuff. Also, he never shoots that arrow. We get some nice dialogue from Jeremy Renner. He's very charming, where he's like, Coulson, you better call it right now, because I'm kind of starting to root for this guy as there's a big fight happening in the mud. But we never get to see him be Hawkeye. All we know is there's a dude with a bow and arrow. It's very much like, that's the scene for the geeks, and people can lean over and go, what's the guy with the bow and arrow about? He'll be in the Avengers, shut up. I realized after watching the Blu-ray special features that I got my timeline wrong. The Incredible Hulk takes place roughly the same time as the events of Iron Man 2. Not the events of Iron Man 1. So, they make in this deleted scene, they make reference to like, hey, is the initiative canceled? No, we still want to use it, but they want to use the Abomination. We gotta send someone to go talk to General Ross and piss him off so Ross will deny the request. And that's the scene we got at the end of Incredible Hulk, is Tony Stark going there to piss him off. So by the time Tony Stark shows up at the end of the Incredible Hulk, he's done the thing. He's gotten his own new... He invented an element and shit. What else do we got that opens the world, that opens in terms of the franchise? Thor's likable. You do want to see him interact more. It's not as cool as, later on when they introduce him like Doctor Strange, where you go like, I can't wait for Doctor Strange to meet Tony Stark. They're both such assholes, I want to see them interact. Or when you meet someone like Ant-Man, where you're like, he's going to just be a fanboy. He's going to I want to see Paul Rudd talk to all these cool actors. I didn't realize until watching this again that Thor and Coulson get to have a few scenes together, which is nice. I'd forgotten that because obviously, spoilers for the Avengers, 3, 2, 1, spoilers for the Avengers. Coulson dies in the Avengers, sort of. He's got his own TV show, it's weird. So, when Coulson dies, everyone in that movie has to react like they lost a friend. And I forgot that Thor actually got to hang out with Coulson for a bit in this movie. It does introduce the idea of Loki as a villain, who, when they announced Loki's villain for the Avengers, we'll get there, I think everybody went, really, that guy? because he's not really intimidating in this movie. He isn't smooth. You kind of understand his point of view, and there's an interesting story to be told about this movie and Black Panther. There's a lot of like, I want to claim the throne, and that guy didn't deserve it, and yada yada yada. Genocide being the big problem. I forgot. Speaking of being the big problem, another big problem with this movie is they blow up the fucking Rainbow Bridge at the end, and how the fuck are we gonna fix that? Which they kind of retconned with Infinity War. I guess they rebuild it by the time Thor 3 rolls around. They never really talk about that, but I only bring it up because Heimdall is played by Idris Elba, and Idris Elba is fucking great and everything. He's good in his few moments in this movie to the point where you're like, I want more of that guy. And we never really got more of that guy. The Thor movies, and we'll get into it more in the other ones, this sets a precedent for Thor movies being kind of meh. They are what they are. Hemsworth is charming. Sometimes it's pretty. But yeah, for me, what do I think the problem was? If you look at the credits, there are like 5 credited writers. Three of them have a story credit. 3 of them have a screenplay credit. And that's just too many cooks. I'm not sure Marvel quite knew what the fuck they wanted to do with this one. More than maybe any of the other Marvel movies in Phase 1, it kind of breaks a lot of rules for what happens later. Some of the stuff just doesn't mesh. Like I said, with the 9 realms, that's weird. With the idea of... So Loki's a frost giant, but he's like a runt. He's a runt frost giant, so he's human-sized. But he's also a sorcerer. So can anybody, if you study, become a sorcerer? I don't understand. Also, when you see Thor and Loki interacting before the movie happens, like before Thor gets banished, they've got a really friendly, kind of jovial thing. The idea of like, and then he turned into a snake and then he stabbed me, and like they're knocking heads. I wish I'd kind of seen Loki and Thor as children fighting, or something, beyond them just kind of being friendly to each other. What else? Oh yeah, Thor's fucking gang of friends. You got Gimli, but taller. You got Xena, but she's got a sword and stuff. You got, what do they say in the movie? Jackie Chan, Xena, and Robin Hood. Kinda. Like, we got, Thor has this gang of buddies he hangs out with. This, Sif and the Warriors 3. And Sif has a really interesting character arc for the first 2 movies. It seems like there's going to be some kind of love triangle thing with her. But those 4 characters, Thor's old fighting buddies, don't really serve much point in the movie, so it's kind of, they just take space. And when they do show up, they're useless against the big fucking thing at the end, the Destroyer. So, I don't know. It doesn't really work very well. I've been talking for almost 20 minutes already at this point, so I'm going to wrap it up and say that I'm glad I got Thor out of the way. Honestly, that was the one I was looking forward to watching the least, even compared to Thor 2 or Ant-Man. I had no fucking interest in watching Thor again, really. I enjoyed it for what it was. The fucking Dutch angles, that was frustrating, but hey, I got past it, and now I can move on to Captain America and Avengers. So, I'll see you next time with Captain America. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and meow meow. For setting up the tag on this one. I don't have like a Tesseract artifact. Interesting thing about the tag for this one, that was the first thing Joss Whedon ever shot. He shot it in 3D because Thor was shot with 3D cameras, so 2 cameras side by side. The Avengers was converted, and for a while there, the technology of doing 3D movies, if you saw a movie that was converted, like shot traditionally and then converted to 3D, it was really easy to tell. The movie was really dark and it kind of looked like garbage. So they shot, Marvel was like, let's pay the real big money and do it the proper way. So the tag for this movie, Joss Whedon wrote and directed, which is Nick Fury shows up, shows the Tesseract off, which you've never seen before. Selvig is there, and then it turns out Loki's controlling Selvig, so Loki's alive, and he's involved in this whatever the fuck Tesseract thing. And they shot that with 3D cameras. It was a 1-day shoot, and apparently it's like a 2-minute scene. Apparently it took Joss Whedon like 40 hours to shoot or something like that. I know that's more than 1 day, but you get the idea. It was a very hellish shoot because of the technology. So luckily, by the time they got to the Avengers, Joss Whedon was able to be like, fuck it, let's just convert it. It'll be better. I cannot shoot a whole goddamn movie that way. Like I said, we do get Nick Fury in this. We get the Tesseract, which I am not a big enough Marvel comic fan. So when I watched that scene, I was like, what the fuck is the Tesseract? Is Loki controlling that guy? What's going on? What's happening? And obviously it's all set up for, I mean, obviously the Avengers, but also the Tesseract features very, very heavily in Captain America. So the tag is just a tag. At this point, everyone knew to wait around for it. It's the longest tag we've seen so far. It's a real scene. I feel like when Nick Fury shows up, there was probably like a small, yay, it's Nick Fury. That's where he belongs in the tags kind of a thing. It's interesting to watch. It's interesting that was Joss Whedon's kind of first thing. He apparently did rewrites on Captain America, which we'll talk about next time. So yeah, the tags continue. This was the first time people would ask me, hey, what's that mean? And I was like, I have no fucking clue. Google it, I guess. Which would become a trend. As the movies continue, the more deep cuts the comic book reference get, the more I was like, I don't know what the fuck that thing is. Like at the end of the Avengers, I didn't know who fucking Thanos was. So this was the first time I was like, I don't know what's in that box, but I guess Loki's alive. Yay, blue cube. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the tag and Thor in general. Thank you for watching, and like I said, we'll see you next time with Captain America, the first Avenger.